Did you know that in California, the highest and lowest spots in the contiguous United States sit just 88 miles apart? Or that the world's hottest rain ever recorded was in California? How about the fact that Lake Tahoe is big enough to engulf the whole of California in water? Well, California is a state that is full of crazy facts like this. So settle in, because we're about to reel off 50 of the wildest facts about California that you probably never knew. Fact 50. A lake older than civilization. Mono Lake in eastern California is North America's oldest lake, estimated to be over 760,000 years old. However, it may be a remnant of a larger lake that formed 1 to 3 million years ago. This surreal, salt-rich environment is famous for its bizarre two-foot tower formations, more on those later, and serves as a living time capsule, home to salt-loving microbes and tiny brine shrimp thriving in water almost 3 times saltier than the ocean. Fact 49. The sea that was an accident. Believe it or not, California's largest lake, the Salton Sea, isn't actually natural. In fact, it was a complete accident. The Salton Sea was created by an engineering mishap in 1905 when engineers mishandled an irrigation canal from the Colorado River, causing the river to break through in flooded desert basin for 2 years, turning a dry salt flat into an inland sea. At one point, it stretched 45 miles across. Today, the Salton Sea is still around, a salty lake filled with tilapia and a hotspot for birds, but it's getting smaller every year, and there have been ongoing efforts to try and refill parts of it before it dries up even more. Fact 48. There's a supervolcano lurking in California. Under the quiet mountains near Mammoth Lakes sits the Long Valley Caldera, one of the biggest supervolcanoes on Earth. Around 760,000 years ago, it exploded in a massive eruption that sent out enough ash, around 600 cubic kilometers, to cover much of California, and left behind a huge 20-mile-wide crater. Even today, signs show it's still active. The ground shifts, CO2 gas kills trees, and hot springs bubble up from below, all pointing to magma still moving underground. Since 1980, the area has had swarms of small quakes and changes in the land, keeping scientists on alert. It's like California's version of Yellowstone, a giant sleeping just under the surface. Fact 47. The time it rained like Florida in Los Angeles. Sounds weird, right? It really happened. The only tropical storm to hit Southern California in modern times made landfall back in 1939. It was called the Lash of St. Francis, or El Cordonazo, and it slammed into the coast with 65-mile-per-hour winds and dropped 5 inches of rain in just one day. In places like Long Beach, houses were swept into the ocean, streets turned into rivers, and the LA River flooded like never before. Around 100 people lost their lives in the chaos. The storm was so unexpected and intense that the following year, Southern California set up its own weather office, just to make sure nothing like that would ever catch them off guard again. Fact 46. A fire tornado with 143-mile-per-hour winds. Rainstorms aren't the only extreme weather in California. Wildfires can create their own kind of chaos too. In July 2018, during the Carr Fire near Redding, flames and wind combined to form something terrifying, a fire tornado. This spinning tower of fire hit wind speeds of up to 143 miles per hour. It ripped trees from the ground, bent steel power poles, and stripped bark off tree trunks. The National Weather Service gave it an EF3 rating, the same as a strong tornado. It was so powerful it melted cars and caused a massive boom that could be heard from miles away. Firefighters were forced to back off, and the event showed just how intense and unpredictable California wildfires can really be. Fact 45. Highest and lowest points. Neighbors. Did you know that in California, the highest and lowest spots in the contiguous United States are located just 88 miles apart? Mount Whitney gets up to 14,505 feet, making it the tallest peak in the lower 48 states, while nearby Death Valley's Badwater Basin plunges to 282 feet below sea level, one of the lowest points on Earth. In a weekend, a hiker can go from the thin, oxygen-starved air on top of towering mountains to a scorching salt flat that feels like another planet. Talk about extreme geography in close quarters. Fact 44. A fault that feels alive. California has more than 700 named earthquake faults running through it, which helps explain why the ground is always shifting. The state gets hit by around 10,000 quakes every year, but most are so small people don't even feel them. The most famous fault, the San Andreas, isn't just a single break in the ground. It's an 800-mile-wide zone with smaller cracks that have been moving for over 20 million years. In some places, you can actually see the fault in person, as a dip in the ground or a scar on a hillside. One eerie example, near San Francisco, part of the fault runs through a reservoir, and you can see rows of dead trees underwater where the land dropped during the 1906 quake. These faults aren't just underground lines, they constantly reshape the land. In 1992, the coast near Humboldt was lifted 15 feet in an instant, and in 2010, an area near the Salton Sea sank by several feet. It's a reminder that in California, the ground never really stays still. Fact 43. The Mud Lake Monster. You've heard of the Loch Ness Monster in Scotland, but have you heard of the Mud Lake Monster in California? Let us explain. Out in Imperial County, there's something strange happening. A bubbling gray mud spring called the Nylon Geyser is slowly creeping across the desert, swallowing whatever gets in its way. It started moving west around 2007, and no one really knows why. Since then, it's slid more than 280 feet and forced engineers to do everything from rerouting highways and train tracks to digging a 75-foot deep steel wall, none of which stopped it. The mud just went around. This isn't just a puddle, it's a slow-moving pool of CO2-charged mud that spits out about 40,000 gallons a day, carving its own path like a natural bulldozer. Nicknamed the Slow One, the Nylon Geyser is the only moving mud pot in the world. But it's not done yet. Fact 42. Mystery of the Sailing Stones. For years, no one could figure it out. Massive stones, some weighing hundreds of pounds, mysteriously sliding across the cracked desert floor of Death Valley's racetrack playa, leaving long, winding trails behind them. No one had ever seen it happen. Theories flew around. Maybe strong winds, maybe magnetic fields, maybe even something supernatural. Then in 2014, scientists finally caught it on camera. What they found was surprisingly simple. After rare winter rains, a thin layer of ice forms over the playa. When the sun comes out, that ice starts to crack and break apart into big floating sheets. Light winds then push the ice, which slowly nudges the rocks across the wet, slippery mud. It's not fast. It can take years for a single track to form. But this odd mix of ice, water, and wind creates one of the strangest natural sights in the desert. Rocks that seem to move all on their own. Now we know, it's not magic, it's just one of nature's quiet tricks finally revealed. Fact 41. California has a valley that sinks. California's Central Valley is slowly sinking. Literally. Years of pumping groundwater to support farming in cities has caused the land to collapse under its own weight. A 2024 study from Stanford found that parts of the San Joaquin Valley have dropped faster than ever since 2006. This isn't new. Since the 1920s, some spots have sunk nearly 30 feet. That's the height of a 3-story building. In certain areas, the ground is still sinking more than a foot every year. You can see the damage everywhere. Cracked roads, warped bridges, and buckled canals. It's such a major shift that satellites can actually see it happening from space. All of it caused by pulling too much water from underground. A slow-motion disaster we made ourselves. Fact 43. World record trees in one state. Hold on, we thought Texas was the state where everything is bigger. Well, seemingly not when it comes to trees. In fact, California is the only place on Earth home to the world's tallest, biggest, and oldest living trees. The coast redwood, Sequoia sempervirens, reaches heights of up to 379 feet, taller than the Statue of Liberty, and renowned as the tallest trees on Earth. The giant sequoia, Sequoia dendron giganteum, can weigh around 2,000 tons, about the weight of 400 elephants, and the oldest bristlecone pine, Methuselah, is nearly 4,800 years old, predating the pyramids by thousands of years. Fact 39. Fog factories for redwoods. California's coastal redwoods aren't just the tallest trees on Earth. They have a secret way of staying alive during the dry summer months. These giants, found from Humboldt County down to Big Sur, actually drink fog. On average, a redwood can take in around 160 gallons of water a day, but when rain stops in the summer, they turn to the fog that rolls in off the coast. Tiny droplets collect on their needles and drip down to the roots, something scientists call fog drip. In fact, up to 40% of a redwood's water during the dry season can come from this process. If you walk beneath them on a foggy morning, it can feel like it's raining. This natural fog-catching trick is one reason redwoods grow over 300 feet tall, even in places with months of drought. But climate change is bringing less fog, and that's putting serious pressure on these ancient trees. Fact 38. California has flies that scuba dive in toxic water. Mono Lake's salty, acidic water is nearly as harsh as ammonia, yet it's home to alkali flies with an incredible trick. These flies can walk underwater, completely wrapped in a bubble of air, like they're wearing little scuba suits. Back in 1872, even Mark Twain was blown away by them. He wrote that they go under and come out totally dry. Modern scientists figured out why. Their bodies are covered in tiny hairs and a waxy coating that repels water, trapping air around them. So they dive into this harsh lake to feed and lay eggs. Men float back up still breathing. Basically, California has flies that made their own mini diving gear, swimming through salty soup like it's no big deal. Fact 37. The giant bathtub drain of Lake Berryessa. In Napa County, there's a strange sight that looks like something out of a sci-fi movie. A giant spinning hole in the middle of a lake. It's called the Glory Hole, and it's not natural. This is an overflow spillway at Lake Berryessa, built to keep the water level under control. When the lake is full, this 72-foot wide concrete funnel kicks in, sucking water down 200 feet into Puta Creek below. At full speed, it can drain over 360,000 gallons every second, like a massive bathtub plug for the whole lake. People come from all over just to see it, and it's easy to see why. It's mesmerizing, powerful, and a little terrifying. In all the years it's been around, only one person and one confused duck have ever been pulled in. Fact 36. Camels and flamingos once roamed California. Fossils found in the Mojave Desert tell a story that's hard to imagine. This dry, dusty region was once full of life. Near Barstow, scientists have uncovered remains of camels, mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and even flamingos, all in the same area. That's right, flamingos once lived in what is now one of the hottest, driest parts of California. These fossils point to a time when wetlands and warm tropical-like environments covered the land. Researchers have also found petrified palm trees and ancient turtles, showing that this desert was once a much greener, wetter place. Fact 35. California has singing sand dunes. In California's Mojave Desert, the Kelso Dunes can sometimes break into a deep, echoing sound, almost like the desert is humming. When the sand is dry and the conditions are just right, shifting grains rub together in a way that creates a low, steady tone. It can last for minutes and carry across the dunes, sounding like a distant engine or low thunder. Only about 30 places worldwide have this strange effect, and at Kelso, even hikers sliding down the slopes can trigger the sound themselves. Fact 34. Los Angeles' sneaky strip of land. Los Angeles has a bizarre snake-like border, a narrow 16-mile stretch, sometimes less than a mile wide, extending south to connect the city to the bustling port of San Pedro. Known as the shoestring, this unusual strip was annexed in 1909 so LA could secure its own seaport. Essentially, the city reached out to grab a vital harbor. As you travel down the Harbor Freeway today, you'll pass through this small, twisting portion of Los Angeles that is tucked away between neighboring towns. A genuine land corridor allowed Los Angeles to reach the busiest port in the country, making it one of the most bizarre city boundary solutions ever. Fact 33. Lake Tahoe is big enough to flood California. Lake Tahoe isn't just big, it's massive in a way that's hard to believe. If you spread all its water across California, the whole state would be under about 14 inches of water. At its deepest point, 1,645 feet, it's deep enough to hide the entire Empire State Building with room to spare. And if it were ever emptied, it would take about 700 years to refill. Its water is also incredibly clear. In some spots you can see down more than 70 feet, and because of how huge and deep it is, Lake Tahoe never freezes, even in the coldest winters. Fact 32. California is home to the world's smallest mountain range. Rising out of the flatlands north of Sacramento, the Sutter Buttes look like a rocky island in a sea of farmland. They're just 10 miles wide and about 2,000 feet tall, which is why people call them the world's smallest mountain range. To locals, they're a familiar ring of rugged hills that seem to come out of nowhere. According to Maidu legend, this is where the Earth's creator stopped to rest after forming the world. Today, the buttes are mostly private land, but guided hikes give curious visitors a chance to explore this strange, isolated mountain in the middle of the valley. Fact 31. Ghostly white redwood trees. Tucked away in California's redwood forests are strange, pale trees known as albino redwoods or ghost trees. They look like snow-covered redwoods, but their white needles come from a rare mutation that leaves them without chlorophyll. Since they can't make their own food, they survive by connecting their roots to nearby redwoods and stealing nutrients. But it gets even weirder. Scientists found that these ghost trees soak up toxic heavy metals, like a natural filter, at much higher levels than normal redwoods. So not only do they survive by borrowing from their neighbors, they also absorb poisons from the soil, clinging to life in one of the strangest ways nature has ever invented. Fact 30. Lunar rainbows in Yosemite. In Yosemite National Park, something incredible happens on the right spring or summer night. If the moon is full, the sky is clear, and the waterfalls are flowing strong, you might catch a rare sight, a moonbow. It's like a rainbow, but made from moonlight. These soft glowing arcs appear in total darkness, usually around midnight, as the mist from Yosemite Falls bends the moon's light into a pale, ghostly rainbow. Yosemite Falls, the tallest waterfall in North America at 2,425 feet, becomes the stage for this quiet show. It doesn't happen every night, but when it does, it feels like nature is putting on a secret performance just for those lucky enough to be there. Fact 29. San Francisco and LA are on a collision course. As we know, Los Angeles and San Francisco are slowly drifting toward each other, and the results could be dangerous. Thanks to the movement of tectonic plates, LA is creeping about 2 inches north every year along the San Andreas Fault. This fault marks the boundary between the Pacific Plate, which carries Southern California, and the North American Plate, which holds most of the rest of the country. Over millions of years, this slow motion could eventually bring the two cities side by side, or even merge them into one giant urban area. But here's the catch. That movement isn't smooth. As the plates grind against each other, pressure builds up, and eventually it has to be released in the form of earthquakes. So while this slow motion shift won't happen overnight, the quakes along the way could be serious. Fact 28. The city that isn't there. Another strange sight in the Mojave Desert is California City, a place with a big name, but very few people. Back in the 1950s, developers built miles of roads planning to create a massive city that would rival Los Angeles. But the population never came. Today, it's California's third largest city by land area, but only about 15,000 people live in one small section. The rest is a quiet grid of empty streets, with roadsides standing alone in the desert, surrounded by sand and bushes. Locals call it the Ghost Grid, a city that never really happened. Fact 27. Mini mammoths of the Channel Islands. Did you know that during the last ice age, dwarf mammoths, Mammuthus exilis, roamed California's Channel Islands? Evolving from larger Columbian mammoths that swam over when sea levels dropped, these tiny giants shrank to just 5 to 6 feet tall, about the size of a large pony. Fossils, including a near-complete skeleton found in 1994, reveal how island dwarfism turned these once massive creatures into fun-sized survivors. Fact 26. Devil's Postpile Stone Honeycombs. At Devil's Postpile in the Sierra Nevada, you'll find something that looks like it was built by hand, but it wasn't. These tall, hexagon-shaped stone columns form naturally from lava. Around 80 to 100,000 years ago, a volcanic vent erupted near Red Meadow and sent basalt lava flowing into the valley. The lava hit a natural dam, probably made of leftover glacial debris, and pooled into a deep lava lake, down 400 feet in some spots. As the lava slowly cooled, it cracked into near-perfect hexagons. Later, glaciers scraped the tops flat, creating a tiled surface you can walk on today. It's one of the best examples of columnar basalt in the world, right up there with Ireland's Giant's Causeway, proof that nature can build with precision that looks almost man-made. Fact 25. General Sherman's giant stature. The General Sherman, located in Sequoia National Park, is the largest tree on Earth by volume. Standing 275 feet tall with a trunk over 36 feet wide, it holds more than 52,500 cubic feet of wood, enough for 500 million pencils. The Mid-Sierra Zone, 5,000 to 8,000 feet, creates ideal conditions for giant sequoia growth. Mild winter and summer temperatures, deep winter snowpack, and a long fire history have made it possible for the world's largest tree to get its biggest in these parks. Weighing about 1,385 tons, like 2 Boeing 747s, it's still growing, adding enough new wood each year to make a 60-foot tree. Seeing it in person is like standing next to a living skyscraper that's been around since the Roman Empire, so it's no wonder many call it the 8th wonder of the world. Fact 24. Fish that fling themselves onto beaches. It sounds unbelievable, but it's real. In Southern California, the Grunion Run is one of the most unique natural events you'll ever see. During spring and summer nights, right after a full or new moon, thousands of shiny silver fish ride the waves onto the beach. They flop around on the sand to lay their eggs. making them one of the only fish species that willingly strand themselves to spawn. Locals call it a midnight fish rave because the shore turns into a shimmering, moving blanket of fish. After laying their eggs, they catch the next wave back into the ocean, leaving behind a scene that feels more like a dream than real life. Fact 23. Rainbow-colored boiling springs. California has a way of being beautiful, even when it's boiling. Deep inside Lassen Volcanic National Park is Bumpass Hell, a 16-acre patch of steaming vents, bubbling mud pots, and neon blue pools that looks like another planet. The smell of sulfur hits before you even see it. The main feature, big boiler, blasts steam at 322 degrees Fahrenheit, making it one of the hottest vents on Earth. It's named after Kendall Bumpass, an early explorer who fell through the crust here and badly burned his leg. Today, wooden walkways let visitors safely explore this wild, colorful place while listening to the deep rumbling sounds coming from beneath the Earth's surface. Fact 22. The lake that turned into a toxic dust bowl. Okay, this one isn't so pretty to look at. Owens Lake was once a 110-square-mile wonder in eastern California, but in 1926, Los Angeles drained it dry to supply water to the growing city, leaving behind a dusty wasteland. For years, windstorms whipped up clouds of alkali dust mixed with arsenic and other toxic junk, creating the EPA's worst PM10 pollution problem invisible from space as ghostly white dust storms. LA has poured over $1 billion trying to fix it by flooding parts of the lake again. What was meant to be a natural lake turned into an environmental nightmare, an accidental inland beach, still battling to be cleaned up, with towns, farms, and endangered fish fighting for water resources threatened by a rising climate and catastrophic drought. The Owens Lake story serves as a warning to the West. Fact 21. The Ghost Lake Reborn. In the 19th century, Tulare Lake was the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi, a huge inland sea full of fish and wild game. By 1900, it was drained for farmland and disappeared. But in 2023, an unmatched series of storms brought Tulare Lake back to life. Water flooded over 100,000 acres of farmland, creating a shallow lake where none had seen open water for generations. Locals watched in shock as the now nicknamed Zombie Lake spread across the valley, swallowing roads and orchards. The last time Tulare was this large was about 130 years ago, a major reminder that even extinct lakes in California can rise again under the right conditions. While many once flocked to see it, today the crowds of tourists have dwindled and the shoreline is getting much harder to find. Fact 20. A creek that shows the fault line. At Wallace Creek in the Carrizo Plain, you can clearly see what the San Andreas Fault has done. The creek doesn't flow in a straight line. It zigzags, pushed about 430 feet out of place by thousands of years of earthquakes. One massive quake in 1857 moved part of it 30 feet in a single day. Scientists have dated the shifts using ancient sediments, revealing nearly 4,000 years of movement. When you stand there, 1 foot on each side of the fault, you're literally standing on 2 different tectonic plates. Proof that California is constantly being pulled and pushed apart. Fact 19. World's hottest raindrops. You might think that the baking state of Texas has the hottest rain, but nope, California holds the record. On July 24, 2018, in Imperial Valley, it rained while the air was a blistering 119 degrees Fahrenheit, 48 degrees Celsius. This event set a record for the hottest rain ever recorded. Think about it, that's like rain in an oven. Most droplets evaporated before reaching the ground. Humidity was just 11%, but a trace hit the gauge, setting a world record for rainfall at such a scorching temperature. The previous record, also in California, Needles in 2012, was 118 degrees Fahrenheit rain. Fact 18. Tar Pit Fossils Gold Mine. Right in the middle of Los Angeles, the La Brea tar pits have been quietly holding on to a frozen moment in time. Literally, these bubbling pools of tar have trapped and preserved over 3.5 million fossils from the Ice Age, including mammoths, direwolves, and saber-toothed cats. More than 600 different species have been uncovered here, making it one of the richest fossil sites in the world, and the digging isn't over. Paleontologists are still pulling out new finds, like tiny insects and ancient plants, that help piece together what LA looked like 40,000 years ago. Just steps from busy sidewalks, tar still oozes and releases methane. Fact 17. 9 national parks and counting. California has more national parks than any other state, 9 to be exact, each showcasing a different extreme. You can visit the hottest place, Death Valley, the tallest trees, Redwoods, the largest alpine lake. Tahoe, the tallest waterfall. Yosemite Falls, a volcanic wonderland. Lassen, a Galapagos of unique species. Channel Islands, surreal rock spires, pinnacles, glacier-carved mountains. Sequoia and Kings Canyon, and alien-like desert gardens. Joshua Tree, it's like packing an entire continent into one state. Sunbathing below sea level in the morning, then hiking among glaciers in the afternoon. No wonder California is a paradise for explorers and geography geeks alike. Fact 16. The Republic of Rough and Ready. The tiny NorCal town of Rough and Ready now has a population of around 900 people. But what's even more shocking is the fact that it once declared independence in 1850, long before California was a state. Frustrated with taxes and bureaucracy, miners proclaimed themselves the Great Republic of Rough and Ready, even electing a president and raising their own flag. But the rebellion was short-lived, and legend has it that when neighboring towns refused to sell them whiskey because they were foreigners, they decided to rejoin the Union after just 3 months. Today, they celebrate their rebellious past with an annual Secession Days festival. Whether or not it was ever officially recognized, Rough and Ready's brief stint as a country is one of the quirkiest stories from the Gold Rush era and in American history. Fact 15. The town named Zzyzx. California is home to a town named Zzyzx. Yes, that's a real place, pronounced Zzyzx, though many fumble it. Located on the edge of the Mojave, Zzyzx Road leads to a spot once home to a 1940s health spa, built by a shady doctor who picked the last letters of the alphabet to claim the last word in town names. Today, it's a desert study center, but the name remains pure gimmick and the alphabetically last place name in the world. Drive past on I-15 towards Vegas and you'll see Zzyzx exit, confusing travelers and delighting road trip enthusiasts. A ghost town and oddity with a name as strange as its history. Also, bonus fact, the American rock band Stone Sour have a song titled Zzyzx. The track is about lead singer Corey Taylor's struggles with depression, and for Taylor, being on that road felt like being close to home, but also isolated. Fact 14. Redwoods with shallow roots and team spirit. So we've already told you about the wonder of these trees, but there's actually more to know. You'd think the tallest trees on Earth would have deep roots, but coast redwoods only go 6 to 12 feet down. So how do these 350-foot giants stay upright? Well, they stretch the roots outward up to 100 feet and weave them with neighboring redwoods, forming a massive underground network. It's like they're holding hands, literally creating a sturdy interconnected grid that keeps them standing tall. In redwood groves, every giant leans on its neighbors. The real secret? Their strength comes not from deep solo roots, but from a living web of support. Fact 13. The Lost Coast, California's roadless frontier. In Northern California, the Lost Coast is a stretch of land so rugged and remote that even Highway 1 gave up trying to pass through it. For about 60 miles, steep cliffs and unstable ground forced the road to cut inland, leaving this section of coastline untouched. It's one of the only places in the lower 48 with no major road access, just rough trails, tiny towns, and wild ocean views. Towering mountains drop straight into the Pacific, with black sand beaches, sea lions and elk as your main company. It's like Big Sur, but without the traffic or crowds. Named the country's first national conservation area in 1970, the Lost Coast stays wild not because we planned it, but because we couldn't tame it. Fact 12. California's coldest night. When you think of California, you probably picture sunshine year-round, but it can get pretty chilly. While it's certainly no Alaska, California's winter months can see cold temperatures that fall below 30 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 1.1 degrees Celsius. But what's the coldest it has ever gotten? The state's record low is negative 45 degrees Fahrenheit, negative 43 degrees Celsius, recorded in January 1937 in Boca, a tiny Sierra Nevada town near Truckee. That's colder than Montana or Idaho's coldest temps. Boca's deep basins traps cold air like a giant freezer. And here's a fun bonus fact. In 1989, Boca hit negative 43 degrees Fahrenheit again, setting a February record. While Death Valley holds the world's heat record, up in the Sierra, California can rival Alaska's cold. So the Golden State really swings from oven to icebox, depending on where you are. Fact 11. The Pink Lakes of San Francisco Bay. If you fly into San Francisco or drive across the Dumbarton Bridge, you'll probably notice bright pink and red ponds scattered along the bay. And no, it's not your eyes playing tricks on you. Those colors are real. These are salt ponds, and their wild colors come from tiny algae and microbes that love super salty water. As the pond dries up, the salt levels rise, and organisms like halobacteria and Dunaliella algae start to grow like crazy, turning the water pink or even deep red. It's not paint, it's nature doing its thing. These colorful pools cover about 16,000 acres and help speed up salt production. So next time you spot a bubblegum pink lake from the sky, just know it's the Bay Area's natural salt factory in action. Fact 10, the world's most symmetrical dome. Sima Dome, an almost flawless granite beauty covering 75 square miles, is a notable feature in the Mojave. It is so soft that from a distance you would not even notice that it is a dome until you climb a nearby peak and witness its smooth whale-back curve against the horizon. Astonishingly, it rises barely 1,500 feet above the desert. Considered the most symmetrical natural dome in the U.S., it took millions of years of wind and water to carve a jagged mountain into this sleek shape. Once a rugged peak, now a subtle desert sculpture. It's dotted with one of the world's densest Joshua tree forests, though sadly burned in 2020. Picture a massive half-buried sphere in the sand. Sima Dome is a quiet, satisfying marvel that's a little understated, but once you see it, it's impossible to forget. Fact 9. Otherworldly tufa towers. You've already heard about Mono Lake. There's more to the story. All around its edge you'll find strange, jagged towers rising from the ground, called tufa towers. They look like rock sculptures or something out of a science fiction movie. But these spooky-looking spires actually formed underwater when calcium-rich spring water bubbled up through the lake bed and mixed with the lake's carbonates, forming limestone that slowly built up over time. For years they were hidden beneath the water until Los Angeles started diverting Mono Lake streams in the 1900s, dropping the water level by over 40 feet. Now the towers stand fully exposed, some nearly 30 feet tall, giving Mono Lake a look that's more alien than Earth. Fact 8. The secret tallest tree. California's famous for its giant trees, but hidden deep in Redwood National Park is one that stands above them all. It's called Hyperion, and it holds the record for the tallest tree on Earth, measuring about 380 feet tall, 116 meters. That's taller than 3 big bins stacked together. Discovered in 2006, its exact location is kept secret to protect it from damage, especially to its sensitive roots. It likely started growing during the time of the Crusades and is still standing strong, even with a bit of woodpecker damage. Surrounded by a forest of other giants, Hyperion towers above like the quiet king of a hidden wooden cathedral. As of 2022, it's completely off limits. Visiting it could get you fined or even jailed. Still, that hasn't stopped some people from trying to find it. But if you ask park rangers, the best way to see Hyperion is from a respectful distance. Fact 7. The geysers. Earth's steamy powerhouse. Approximately 72 miles, 116 kilometers north of San Francisco, the geysers is the world's largest geothermal field, an underground steam factory powering California, containing a complex of 18 geothermal power plants that produce about 1.5 gigawatts, enough for 1.4 million people, and drawing steam from more than 350 wells. Since 1960, this 45-square-mile cauldron has been churning out steam so strong, turbines keep spinning non-stop. In fact, the geysers generate half of California's geothermal energy. As you drive by, you see swelling plumes of steam rising from hillside plants and hear the distant hum of turbines. It's surreal green energy. No volcano needed, just ancient magma cooking groundwater underground. Fact 6. Bison on the beach. While bison typically live in grasslands, prairies, and plains, Santa Catalina Island is home to a surprising herd of 100 to 150 American bison roaming the hills. They're not native. 14 were brought in 1924 for a Hollywood Western and left behind. The herd thrived, growing to around 600, but today the Catalina Island Conservancy keeps it at a manageable 150 to protect the island's ecosystem. Visitors hiking across Catalina Island might be surprised to spot bison grazing against the backdrop of ocean, like the Great Plains got dropped into the Pacific. It's a strange and unexpected sight, but these bison have become part of the island's identity. Fact 5. Trona Pinnacles. Sci-fi spires. Did you think we were done talking about tufa? Well, in the remote Searles dry lake bed of the Mojave, over 500 tufa spires, or Trona Pinnacles, rise from the ancient lake bed, some reaching 140 feet. They formed underwater 10,000 to 100,000 years ago when mineral-rich groundwater met alkaline lake water. The landscape here is so strange and dry that it's often used in movies to stand in for other planets. Shows like Star Trek and Planet of the Apes film scenes among these sharp rock spires. Walking through them feels more like exploring Mars than California. Some clusters even have nicknames like the Castle or the Chapel, and when the sun rises or sets, the shadows make everything feel even more surreal. It's a reminder that you don't have to leave Earth to feel like you're on another world. It's just a few hours from Los Angeles. Fact 4. Pocket-sized island foxes. Did you know California has its own tiny island fox that you won't find anywhere else on Earth? Meet the island fox, North America's smallest fox. These little guys only live on 6 of the Channel Islands off the Southern California coast. They're about the size of a chihuahua, weighing just 4 to 5 pounds. Thousands of years ago, gray foxes made their way over from the mainland, probably by floating on debris, and slowly evolved into smaller versions to adapt to island life. Each island now has its own unique subspecies. At one point, some were almost extinct, but thanks to fast conservation work, they made one of the quickest comebacks ever. If you visit Channel Islands National Park, there's a good chance you'll see these curious little foxes wandering around without a care in the world. Fact 3. An inland sea in 1862. In the winter of 1861 to 62, California was hit by a non-stop 45-day storm that triggered the worst flood in the state's history. The Central Valley became a massive 300-mile-long lake, with some areas buried under 30 feet of water. Sacramento was underwater, so badly flooded that the state government had to temporarily move to San Francisco. Towns were wiped out, cattle floated away, and nearly a third of the state's taxable land was lost. And it wasn't just California's worst flood, it was the worst flood in Nevada and Oregon's history as well. If something like that happened today, it could cause hundreds of billions of dollars in damage. Geologists call these arc storms, and they tend to hit every 100 to 200 years. So while wildfires get all the attention, California is just as much at risk of drowning as it is of burning. Fact 2. One of the oldest living trees on Earth, tucked high in California's White Mountains, is Methuselah, a bristlecone pine believed to be more than 4,850 years old, possibly the oldest living tree on Earth. This ancient tree was already growing strong before the pyramids in Egypt were built, and long before Stonehenge appeared in Britain. Its exact spot is kept secret to protect it, but the surrounding grove is filled with other gnarled, weather-beaten trees that are also thousands of years old. At over 10,000 feet in elevation, these trees survive in thin soil and harsh weather, where few other plants can grow. Fact 1. The town of 1,000 oddities. California's wild spirit is epitomized by Death Valley Junction and the Amargosa Opera House. In the 1960s, ballerina Marta Backett moved to the desert, painted murals of an audience inside the theater, and performed solo ballets to an empty, painted crowd. So California's landscape isn't just terrain. It's a forge of quirky stories, from a secession over whiskey to rain falling at 119 degrees Fahrenheit. The state's extremes and weird wonders make it feel more like its own planet, endlessly surprising, endlessly fascinating. What about 50 fake geography facts about Europe everyone believes?